Tēnā koutou everyone, thanks for sticking around. My name's Georgia and I'm from the violence portfolio at ACC. We're quite a new portfolio and we will work on getting a better name. We are actually in the business of preventing violence. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is a program that we developed and are currently implementing, which is called Mates and Dates. So what Mates and Dates is a healthy relationships program. The aim of it is to both encourage protective factors for young people about healthy relationships, but predominantly to prevent dating and sexual violence. Mates and Dates was developed as a program sort of out of a steering group that came from the back of the Roastbusters incidents. And what I'm talking to you about today is the pilot. So we piloted last year, and we're currently in the phase of delivering for term 2 this year and planning what our service design looks like for ongoingly. So it's a best practice multi-year program, and it's intended to be delivered across every year of secondary school. So it's about changing behaviours, changing attitudes and behaviours for young people. So it focuses on social and emotional aspects of having relationships. It's structured so it's scaffolded for each year so that they're getting sort of developmentally appropriate information for their age group. But each module or each 5 sessions that they do has the same key themes every year. So they do one around healthy relationships, one around skills and consent, identity, gender and sexuality, when things go wrong, which is looking at if you're in a relationship where there's violence or you're experiencing violence at home or in other situations, as well as sexual violence, and keeping safe together, which is around looking at how we can support peers, how they can support their friends, but also how they can intervene in situations that are precursors to violence or where violence is actually happening, and how to seek help. So if they want to get support from somebody, who those people are that are safe to talk to. And some of the little images you're looking at is the illustration. So this is what the actual resources look like that the young people will get at school. So what we were testing basically with the pilot is kind of proof of concept. So it was delivered to every year level, but the young people have only been through 1 year of the program in a sense. So predominantly we wanted to test that it was safe, but we also had overall program aims. So we wanted to provide young people with the tools, so knowledge and skills. So we long term want to track what they actually do differently. So not what they know, because we all know things and sign up to the gym and then don't go or whatever. So we want to look at what they actually do differently long term. So as I said, they're looking at bystander and intervention skills where there's a risk of violence as well, help seeking for themselves, but also we know that most young people are in relationships that are really positive and they have lots of positive protective factors in their worlds, and we want to enhance that. So it's definitely not about targeting young people who are at risk. It's looking at what are all the things that are going well for them, and building that up so they all know that we all have particular ideas about healthy relationships. So the pilot objectives were to test the materials. So there was some sort of stuff around the actual content as well as what the materials look like and things like that, which were important. And also the delivery methods, to find out what we would need to alter if this was going to be an ongoing delivery. To also measure the effectiveness and the impact of the program. So we wanted to look at pre and post, what kind of changes did we see in knowledge and attitudes and potentially behaviours with the young people that we piloted with. And also look at how we could make this the capacity of what we would need to make this a program that was nationwide. So any school that wanted it, what would we need to mean that we could deliver that to every school. So we piloted in 8 schools, and the schools were chosen on the basis of partly with the providers. So providers had to have a relationship with schools, and there was Northland, Auckland, Wairarapa, Wellington, Nelson and Dunedin, and partly another reason why the schools were chosen was to get a range of demographics across ethnicity, across decile, across regions. So obviously there's different things to take into account if you're delivering in urban areas and other geographical areas. And so the program was delivered to 1,800 students and 1,268 were evaluated through the pre and post survey. So there were 14 facilitators, and we used a co-facilitation delivery model. So there's one one thing about sexual violence and violence prevention is that it's quite a new area in terms of evaluating its efficacy and delivery models. So there's sort of 6 of one, half of the dozen of the other of whether it's better to use teachers who are around all the time, or whether it's better to use external people because of the nature of the content, and that young people felt like they would want to talk, they wouldn't want to. So part of what I had the fun job of doing was going around and talking to a lot of young people in focus groups, and they were like, oh, we don't want to talk about that, and then go to maths and have to see the same teacher again because that's like so weird. So that's sort of why we went with this method, and we also wanted to use specialist sexual violence sector people, so that in the event that there would be disclosures, which we sort of thought would probably definitely happen, they would be able to manage that safely within the school. And lots, as I said, all of those providers already had relationships with the school, so they were already delivering some sort of support service there, or delivering other kinds of educational programs. So yeah, they had to have experience in doing that. They had to have experience working with young people, but also working in groups, and then to be supervised externally. So there were activities conducted in 8 pilot sites by an independent evaluator, and so schools worked to select students or classes for inclusion in the pilot. We asked them not to pick particular students, although we found out afterwards that some schools had done that. We explicitly said please don't do that. And so the evaluation was pre and post program surveys for students, but there was also a qualitative aspect. So there was focus groups with students, parents, teachers and school staff. And like I said before, as part of developing the program, which was my job, was I did focus groups with young people, with teachers, with parents. We also had an advisory group, so that was, and the content was peer reviewed before we put it into the schools. And the evaluators also went to multiple pilot sites to watch the sessions run to see what was going on. So I'll talk to you about the survey and impact results. So the main tool used was a tablet survey. So they were given the survey beforehand and also immediately after the delivery of the program. So it also asked, so it had impact questions, but it also asked them about their experience of participating in the course. So things about the facilitators, the content, etc. There was some sort of mitigating factors around the matchings of the surveys, because there was we were delivering in sort of fourth term, which is obviously for senior levels the exam time, which is not ideal. They were also asked to create their own unique identifier that they had to remember 5 weeks later. So that was good. So we got 600 matches, which is still really great, to look at, that we could show definitely that showed us before and after of those same students. Obviously we also got a lot of qualitative data, and all the raw data is there for us to use as well. And so what we found was really promising. So as I said, they've only all had one module, I guess, so 5 sessions of the whole 5-year program. So they haven't actually done the full of the program in its entirety. But what we saw was that there was increased knowledge in recognising early warning signs of abuse, the effects of alcohol and its impact on relationships, and the ability to manage risky situations. There was an increase in reports of disclosures, so unwanted sexual related touching, which is something that we would see as a really positive outcome, because around 57% of students who report unwanted sexual experiences don't tell anybody. So we really, one of the things with the program was looking at reporting and also seeking help for it. There was a high level of disagreement with rape myths, and really strong belief in rape myths is a precursor for committing violence. Knowledge of where to seek support improved, so there was a big focus on if you can't tell your parent or your partner or those people aren't safe to tell, who else could you tell? And obviously the people that were coming into the schools were attached to support agencies, and they had a lot of disclosures about a whole range of things, so it wasn't all sexual violence related. There was a lot of things around depression and suicidality and other sort of associated difficult topics. Most of the students said that they had learnt more about relationships and how to develop healthy relationships. Increased level of disagreement with gendered statements, which is similar reasoning to the rape myths. Confident recognising risky situations and behaviour. one of the things that we found was that there was no difference in understanding of consent. One of the key things is to talk about consent with the young people and what that means to negotiate consent. Not always in regards to sexual activity. It might be, so they start out doing like, you want to go to the movies, but your friend wants to go play rugby instead, and how do you come to an agreement about what you're going to do? But we're really interested long-term in finding out. This was based on a study which asked them to identify aspects of non-consent. So we wondered if maybe they already thought that they knew lots about it before the course, and then also afterwards were like, oh, okay, yeah, I do know heaps. Because in the focus groups, every young person said, what's consent? So that was very surprising to me to see this impact survey. So we also found out some things about the model of delivery. So the co-facilitation model was seen as really positive. So every school had a male and female facilitator. And so some of the staff said that, that it was really good to see a respectful relationship happening in practice, which is obviously the purpose of using a male and female, and that they could work really well to make the material flexible, because as sort of a connection with earlier presentations, there was a lot of, some schools had really low literacy, and so the material had to be adapted quite heavily to make that relevant, or if there was quite a lot of deaf students, and so making sort of arrangements for the messages to come through in different ways. So what came back out of this other sort of things around delivery was that we needed greater teaching skills for facilitators. So facilitating within schools and classrooms is obviously very different to facilitating young people who turn up voluntarily, and so some of the teachers felt like there needed to be sort of more classroom management, some stuff around the facilitators and school staff clarifying their roles. So sometimes teachers weren't sure about why they were there, whether they needed to participate or not, and obviously really different delivery times. So some schools put it in pastoral care, which is a 40-minute slot, and so they ended up with half an hour for a 50-minute session. And some schools have 90 minutes for every session, so they had a really good amount of time. So obviously some really different things about the way it was delivered. It was better received in schools that had an active school champion. So there was generally one person in the school who really pushed the program and who was really encouraging and supportive of it. And that person, if they were sort of in a position of power, that meant that the delivery was implemented much more smoothly. There also needed to be stronger ACC presence in pilot schools, so we sort of wanted to encourage schools and community organisations to kind of do it themselves and take ownership of it, but what we heard was you actually need to be around more, so that if we have problems, you can help us sort them out. And that there needed to be longer lead-in time. So some schools are asking for up to a year of lead-in time with the facilitators to organise, working with their school communities and family and whānau about what's actually going to take place before it gets implemented. So we're looking at what that will look like. And in terms of the actual materials, so we had some feedback around that there was some kaupapa Māori principles implicit, but they weren't made explicit in the program. And little acknowledgement of Pacific society and culture. So there were no subtitles on some of the films, which made it difficult for deaf students. And then some more information about how facilitators can work with students, for example, with autism or people on the autism spectrum. So that's sort of the same stuff around adapting the material for the needs of the class. We got really good feedback on the GLBTIQ content that was involved there. So we're looking at updating all of these things, but also having a more extensive training that talks to facilitators about how they can adapt the material for each class, because obviously I used to deliver this kind of material in Dunedin, and even between two different schools you've got a totally different group of young people who need really, really different things. And so, I think I finished on time.